So probably some of you listening to the series is asking this question, do I really need to hear the voice of God? Can I just go to church, sing some songs and be done with it? Are we over-spiritualizing this concept of listening to the voice of God? In this episode, I'm going to talk about what are the benefits of listening to the voice of God, and in fact how it's not just something that we should consider, but without it, we cannot fulfill our purpose on earth. Thank you all for joining us today. If you are here for the first time, would you consider subscribing to our channel? And if you've already subscribed, take a moment to turn on the notifications so you can get alerts for our upcoming episodes. So do I need the voice of God? The answer is a big yes. All right, Proverbs 13:12 puts it this way: hope deferred makes the heart sick. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. So God's voice and truth is what allows you not to defer hope in your life. God's voice is what allows you to not allow hope to be deferred in your life to the point that your heart gets sick. So what are the benefits of hearing to the voice of God? The first thing, and probably you already know this, is hearing God gives you access to who you truly are. You won't be able to know who God made you to be unless you are listening and available to that voice of God in your life. Every activity in life without God would become miserable if you don't have the voice of God. And if you look at it, every activity in life will become an offense without the voice of God, because it'll either lead to pride or to shame. Second thing is that, in fact, the voice of God allows you to prosper in your health. And some of you are like, how does that even work, right? When you know the plans of God for your life, when you know the thoughts of God for your life, when you know what He's planned for you, there's so much hope and it gives you reason to live. So it prospers your health because you have reason to live. You have reason to get up the next day. You have reason to live the next moment. In fact, the word says it this way, that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. We live, and we can only live within a fulfilled life and fulfilled purpose if it is for the voice of God. And third, I would want to share is that hearing the voice of God, even though it gives you access to who you are, it also gives you access to who people are and the people that are around you. Now you get to see them through the voice of God, through the lens of God, through how God sees them. In fact, when you are in communion with God and people come in contact with you, especially unbelievers, when they come in contact with you, they should be leaving with more hope because they just met with the voice of God. And some of us might be the only representation of Jesus that they meet ever in their life. So the voice of God not only tells us who we are individually, but it also gives us a window into how God sees people, the people that He's put around us. And the last thing I want to share is His voice transfers inheritance and legacy. When God speaks, He not only blesses you, but He blesses your generation. When God speaks, not only He gives you an inheritance, but He also gives you a legacy that is passed on to your generations. So it's important that you're ready to respond even before God speaks. Many times we are looking for God to speak in some of the big areas of our life, and yet we are not ready to respond to the little things that He has spoken over our life. We're not ready to obey them. Remember from the story of Abraham and Isaac, obedience is better than sacrifice. Also know that it's our decision, our willingness to listen to this voice of God that actually provides the ram for the sacrifice. It's in our obedience that God even provides for the sacrifice. So God wants to speak to each one of us. First of all, He wants us to become disciples that can communicate with Him, that understands His heart. And second, He wants us to be people of love that go and make disciples of nations. And the second part of it, to fulfill our calling on earth, we'll only be able to do it if we can see through the lens of God, through the voice of God, if we can see the world around us through what God sees. So when God sees, He sees the value in people, He sees the gold in people. So when you're able to listen to the voice of God, not only are you seeing yourself for what God sees you as, but you also start seeing the people around you for who God sees them as. God's voice ultimately puts a spotlight on the value of your life, and then God puts a spotlight on the value of your neighbor, and then God also puts a spotlight on the sacrifice that He made for you and me, so that we can be in communion with Him, so we can be in communication with Him. Remember, this is a relationship. And I want to end with John chapter 10:27. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. Remember, we hear His voice because He already knows us, because we are already in a relationship with Him. And remember, we follow Him because He is the door into our life. He's not just our good shepherd that we go to, but He becomes the door into our life that every other voice becomes a stranger's voice. Every other voice than Jesus Himself becomes a voice that we flee from, and we hold on to Jesus because He is the center of everything that we do and everything that we are. So I want to encourage you in the season to listen to the voice of God. Don't make this voice of God something extravagant, supernatural. It is simple. It is common. In fact, it is that whisper. It is that silent whisper within you that wants to speak inside of you. And we get to be the New Testament believers, where God just does not only speak from the outside, but He speaks from the inside out. I hope that the series has blessed you. Just encourage you to take a moment and say, God, I need your help. I want to listen to your voice, and help me to make this process less supernatural than what I thought it to be. And I just want to encourage you that every believer, every child of God has access to the voice of God. It is simple. It is so much less supernatural than what we make it to be. Thank you for watching us today, and God bless you.